Hi, and welcome back to Bible Basics. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for guys who are sharing this. Appreciate it, and that we can look at it all and hopefully learn. If you have questions and discussions, of course, you can put them down below, and I will try to deal with them. Or you can find me on Facebook. Facebook pages dealing with preterism or coming out of preterism, the unpreterist. There's several different pages that I'm on, including debate, middleism.org is my website, and dealing with an apologetic towards preterism. So hopefully you'll be able to interact and discuss and talk about different things in other places and stuff. And I'll do my best to answer questions here that we can. So getting to it, we've been talking about the law, and we're talking about what was fulfilled, and we've been going over the basics and how that the law was defined in two different ways through scriptures. There's now a second point, or third point I should say, that is important to also understand about a covenant, and the covenant God that made with Abraham all the way through with Moses, and the basis of that covenant. And we call that covenant that God established with Abraham and all that a Caesarean type of covenant. And here's basically the difference in ancient Near East, what we're talking about when it came to covenants and agreements and pacts. It's basically all the same thing. And the idea is that you had one group of people over here that, 50,000 strong, and here's another group that was only 5,000 strong. Well, this 50,000 said, we need more food and stuff to feed our armies, so we'll come over here and we can either take and destroy these people and take what we want, but then we'll get nothing out of it. They're gone, they're dead, we won't have anything. Then we'll have to go somewhere else for it. So what we'll do is we'll come over and say, listen, hey, we could kill you and destroy you all. We don't want to do that. In fact, what we'll do is we'll make an agreement with you. You help provide food for our armies and our people and stuff, and then we will provide you with protection. And basically, you don't have a choice. Either you agree to our terms or we will destroy you. That's all there is to it. Because if we can't have you taking care of us, then you're not going to exist. And so naturally the people would say, okay, yeah, we'll provide men for your armies, food, and everything else, and you will promise to protect us. We will become your people. Do you understand that language there? How God used it? Because the establishment of the Caesarean type of a covenant that God created with Abraham was, I'm bigger than you guys. I'm bigger than you with Moses. I will be your God. You will be my people. I will protect you, and I will guide you, provide for you, and this is what you will do for me. Now, you will worship me and me alone. You will be my people because I want you to be the light among all the nations. I want people to see me in you. I want the world to know that God exists through what I do with you. So I will bring you out of Egypt by my mighty hand, so that all the world will know how mighty this God is and how real your God is versus their gods that never answer. And so we see that battle going all the way through the Old Testament, all the way, Elisha's days, hey, call on your Lord, bring down and burn the offering, and it never happened. Even to the point where King Nebuchadnezzar says, you alone and you are the only God there ever was. And that was the whole point of what Israel was about, in a sense, was being a light to the world. And, of course, then bringing the promise of the salvation. Now, there was a second type of covenant that was back in those days, where you got a group over here that had, 20,000 people. Well, I've only got 10,000, and this other group's only got 10,000. So these two groups would come together and say, listen, let's help each other in case these bad guys come after us and they want this from us or they want that from us and they're going to take it or anything else. We protect each other. So the big guy comes over and says, we're going to destroy you. He says, nuh-uh. And these other guy comes up and says, now we're 20,000 strong. You're 20. Let's go at it. Who's going to win? And the 20,000, well, it ain't worth it. It's equal battle. We'll probably lose. Let's get out of here. It won't be worth it. So they helped each other. All the way through Israel's history, those are the kind of covenants they made between the nations. and between themselves. So in case Benjamin got attacked, it was the tribe of Naphtali or one of the others that would come to their rescue, and they would fought together. When they took over the land, all of them fought together against the other nations. And so there's that second type. Now, as I was bringing out, in the covenant with Moses and with Abraham, and you can go back and read this for yourself, and it'll be written out in the blog that I'll put in there. The idea is that there was terms and conditions to those laws. Now, once God made promises to the people, and the people made the promises back, the promises are made. This is very important to understand. Yes, the people forsake their promises. Yes, they did not honor their promises. God always did. That's the point. God is not man. He does not forsake his promises. He does not take them away. God, if he made promises to Abraham and to his descendants, to the descendants of David even, God cannot and will not break his promises. So if God came to Abraham and with Moses said, okay, here's the agreement that we're going to make together. These terms have to be fulfilled. You have to obey me. If you don't obey me, you don't. This is what's going to happen to you. And everybody who fails will die. Get that. You will die in your sins. You will die as bad people, whatever, as individuals, and as a nation. Remember that God said, I will also judge you as a nation and as individuals. That's what the whole sacrificial system was about. Remember, the individual for his sin would come before the Lord, make an offering, the animal would be killed, and that death, that blood, would be offered up to God and as a replacement for his own. And the idea, of course, is without the shedding of blood, there is no remission for sins. Forgiveness cannot happen without the shedding of blood. So the animals in the sacrificial system do not remove the guilt and the sin. They do not stop the final death from happening. They only postpone it. They postpone it until what? Christ comes. That was the type and the shadow. It's pointing towards the one man who would come, who would make the final sacrifice for all, and then all sacrifices would end, and no more requirement for sacrifices would be needed. So, I want you to understand that when, in those verses, let's see if I'm going to, yes, 5:18, of course, and this is where it all stems from. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth passes away, not an iota, not a dot will pass from the law until all is accomplished or fulfilled. Now, if anybody was to just to do a general lookup of that phrase, you would only find it in one, the iota and the dot, that language there. You will only find it in one other verse, and that is in Luke 16:17. And here's where we deal with the crux of the law. I want you to notice that the word iota and dot are considered the fine print. In other words, in our language today, did you read the small print of the contract? I mean, and it has the terms and the conditions there. If you fail to make your payment, we will charge you $30. If you do this wrong, we'll do this. We have the right to change these rules anytime that we feel like. These are called the fine print. We're allowed to raise interest rates if you miss a payment. We can do this, this, and this. And when you sign your name on the bottom line, you agree to all of those fine print. You agree to the iota and the dots of the law. So that in order for this contract to end or be finished or to be completed or fulfilled, all of those little fine prints have to happen. You cannot, and this is the whole point of what God is saying, God does not simply say, because you people all failed it, therefore I don't have to. We'll forget about the rest of the covenant. We'll do something different. We'll start a new one or whatever. God doesn't do that. He's saying, I made promises. What kind of a God am I if I don't fulfill my promises? Well, the promises you made was that if we fail, you're going to kill us all. He goes, yep, that's what's going to happen. You're all going to die. You're going to be killed on the day that you sin. Oh wait, the animal took your place. Okay, so that points forward to. So what are you all waiting for? What's going to happen is that the person who is going to come and die in your place, when he's dead, that's covered over. So that's what we're moving towards. Now, Don states, and here's the problem, and we're getting into more detail of that as we go through, and of course it'll be in the paper. Here's what Don stated. He said, Jesus' words are clear and unmistakable. Until heaven and earth passes, not one jot or one tittle shall pass from law. The passing of heaven and the passing of the jot and tittle are synchronous events. Thus, to argue, as all modern evangelicals do, that the parts of the Torah have been removed is to demand that heaven and earth have passed. You cannot have the passing of the Torah without the passings of the heavens and earth. Okay, here's the sister verse. And here's why everything about what Don says about having to have everything accomplished and everything fulfilled in order for the new heavens and the earth to arrive and everything is completely bogus. If you do an exegetical study on that phrase, there is one other verse that uses that exact same phrase in one of the other Gospels, and it is a direct link, the same wording, the same passage, the same kind of conversation that Luke is recording, that Mathew is recording. In other words, they're both referring to the same conversation. They're both talking about the exact same thing. And here, I want you to remember, when Mathew wrote his book, he wrote it to Jews. He did not explain idioms and common phrases in language that they would have understood in a Hebrew context. Luke is writing to Greeks who do not have that background. So he expounds on it and explains it a little bit better for Greeks to understand it. So here's the sister verse of Matthew 5:18 in Luke 6:17. And I have never seen Don Preston or anybody else and a preterist deal with this. And I'm asking you now to deal with this. I won't go, this is the ending of this video, is what we're going to deal with here. It says in Luke 16:17, it is easier for heaven and earth to pass away than for a single stroke of pen to drop out of the law. It is easier for heavens and earth to pass away than for one iota or dot to pass from the law without it all being accomplished. What is he saying? Is heaven and earth talking about literal? Or is it using metaphorical to refer to the temple, which means, according to Don's theology, of course, is that in order for the law to end, the heavens and the earth, which is metaphorical for the temple, also had to end. It's not talking about the literal creation. That's the Preston, that is the preterist position. And here's what it really is. Easier for heaven and earth is a Hebrew idiom that's talking about heavens and earth. It is easier for heavens and earth for God not to keep his promises. It's easier for heavens and earth to completely cease to exist than for God's words and his promises not to be fulfilled. It means that God's promises in the covenant, all of the terms, all of the conditions have to be met in order for that covenant to pass away. In other words, you could have the heavens and the earth in creation cease to exist, than for it is easier for that all to cease to exist than for God to lie, for God not to keep his promises, for God not to do what he said he was going to do in that covenant that was made. Do you catch the power of this, using Don's own words? You have to have a literal heaven and earth that it's referring to, and it's a Hebrew idiom. It does not mean that heavens and earth have to pass away. That is a complete fallacy. You can go back on theologically and a lot of places that actually deal with that now. There was a lot of failures on people that looked at that and never dealt with it in the passage of Luke 16:17. I'm dealing with it here. A single stroke of the pen, one jot or iota, there's the same phrasing is being used in 16:17, and that's all there is to it. The bottom line is it's not talking about the heavens and the earth passing away. So, with that said, I'm asking you to look it up, research it, ask questions, post them down below if you can. Go to my pages on Facebook, look me up, Stephen Whitsitt. You'll find me there, and we can dialogue in the unpreterist, coming out of preterism, There's several different pages that you can join, and we can have discussions if I don't catch you here. I would love to talk to you about it all and for us to dialogue with it. But all I've asked for is, of course, honesty with it. Easier for heavens and earth to pass away than a single stroke of pen to drop. Compare it with Luke 16:7. Is it the same verse or not? That's what you got to determine. Because if it is the same verse, then Luke is clarifying specifically that Hebrew idiom. Okay, thank you for watching, and you guys have a good night, and we'll catch you on the